Hello and welcome to Bird Brains, the YouTube channel devoted to all things avian. I'm Lev Perikian, amateur bird watcher, author of Why Do Birds Suddenly Disappear and instigator of the Twitter Birdsong Project. And here with me, as always, is David Darrell Lambert, professional ornithologist and author of Birdwatching London. David, hello, how are you?
I'm very good, Lev. How are you doing?
I mean, we've got great shirts this week. I'm quite pleased with my shirt. It's blue. It's a blue thing with white birds on it, generic sort of gulls. And yours, I'm afraid, blows me out of the water again. What a shirt that is! Magnificent effort.
This was from Barbados and selected by my daughters to wear today.
Excellent. You have excellent daughters. So, what's been happening bird-wise in your part of the world, in sort of East London?
Well, today I was quite happy to hear a ringneck parakeet because I don't often get them. And I was lying in bed, slowly gaining consciousness, and one flew over calling, which was great.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm pretty dubious about the pleasures of hearing ringneck parakeets because they're quite rare for you, aren't they? They're not that common up where you are. Here we are in South London. They don't plague us, but occasionally, about once a month, they will descend on the feeders, and there'll be about 3 or 4 of them. But I know in some parts of London, they're a terrible menace, aren't they? Squawking and squeaking and, rah, 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 and making a racket. The roosts are getting bigger, aren't they? And they're spreading northwards. At what sort of stage do we think that they might become a proper invasive pest and need to be dealt with?
Well, they're classified already as a invasive species.
Yeah.
So we're already at that stage, and at the moment our population is probably anything between 20 to 40,000 birds in the London area. So, it's only really moments away before they start impacting other areas. Normally with invasive species, what happens is they reach a big level and then suddenly notice another bird species or another species drops and disappears. Yeah. And then we suddenly go, oh, it was a parakeet.
Yeah.
So like last year when I was in Queen's Wood, which is wood in North London that I go to regularly, there's a hole that nuthatches use every year, and they line it with mud, and they've used it for about 3 or 4 years on the trot. Then last year, ringneck parakeets are taking it over.
They have, because nuthatches, but they do the mud around the hole, don't they, to make it smaller for them. But the parakeets just kind of pull that out and do that. Is it true that they nest early, quite early in the year, so that they can take advantage of those holes before the others have got in there? So that sometimes you might get a woodpecker coming into the same hole later in the season, or is that not quite right?
No, I think they seem to breed, because woodpeckers and like nuthatches as well breed at a similar sort of time of year. Quite early they'll start.
Right.
Definitely in London, and it's a similar sort of time that parakeets are coming in and starting to nest at the end of our winter, basically. So I think there's going to be a clash. I mean, in Spain they discovered that they were going into roost sites of bats and killing all the bats. Yeah, so that could be a massive impact on our.
Not ideal. I know some people love them because they're colourful and they're kind of gaudy and noisy, and others hate them for exactly the same reasons. So you can't win, can you? I quite like them in small numbers. But I'm going to knock that one out of the water, I'm afraid, because I am very excited about swifts, which have arrived this week. And for me, it is the best moment pretty much of the whole year in nature. I don't know if you can hear, they're kind of screaming around, just making little screaming noises above us. We're lucky we have them nesting in the next door on one side and next door on the other side, and then 2 doors down on the other side as well. So we've got 6 I've seen in the air over the last 4 days. I don't know if you heard that.
I heard that, yeah.
It's just amazing. And apart from anything else, they come from Africa, and they are fast and maneuverable and extraordinary, but they never stop flying, which sort of leads you to questions about migration and how do they do it, and what do we know about migration of things like swifts?
Well, I went to a conference to do with GPS tracking of birds, and they were explaining how that in the Scandinavian countries, different populations do different things. So one population went to sort of like the west coast of Africa and just hung around all there. Then another population went there and then spread all the way down into South Africa and then came back up. So it may be that all different populations doing very different things in Africa. It's hard to know. We
Yeah.
have these defined boundaries of countries, and birds are just doing their thing in their areas. And if it overlaps through two countries, they do it. If it doesn't, they don't.
And they go to where the food is, and they, and they go to where they can survive best, I guess. Is it true that if the weather gets a bit rubbish here, which is the temperatures are going to go down tomorrow, isn't it? If it gets a bit rubbish here, they'll go off to somewhere where it's a bit warmer and there's more insects around for the day?
They do move around massive amounts. I remember once reading about one that had been tracked from southern England, moving all the way up to Scotland to feed in a day.
Wow.
So they're probably capable of massive long migrations. And when I've been on reservoirs, when you get like this strong weather pressure system and all the insects are low down, you find massive congregations of them all swarming around in their thousands, like really close to you, which is absolutely spectacular to see.
Fantastic. And I get excited when I see one, but when we have the sixth and towards the end of the season, around kind of July, when they've bred and the kids have fledged and everything, we have had sort of 30 or 40 in the skies above us, which for me is absolute luxury and heaven.
When they get those big balls and they're just screaming through the sky like that,
it's fantastic. So they're amazing, and it kind of leads us, I think, to our little ID project, because I do get quite often asked the difference between swifts and swallows, especially. So I think you've done a little presentation for us on the hirundines, the house martin, sand martin, swallows, and swifts. So I'm going to just hand straight over to you because it's already up there.
Perfect, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the swallows and the sand martins and house martins all together in one hit, and then lead into the swifts at the end. So normally these are very acrobatic birds, and normally I'm only using one or two features to ID them, and it's a lot about the underside. So if we look at the two images here, one's got a gleaming white belly all the way from bill to tail, and the other one's got a dark chest band coming across. Yeah. So the gleaming white belly is your house martin, and the one with the dark chest band is your sand martin. So two really simple things, and you're going to annihilate probably 99% of all the birds in the sky just by using that.
Excellent. Not literally annihilate. You're not going to kill them. You're just going to eliminate them and go, okay, I know which one's which. So that's the breast band there with the sand martin and the white underneath.
Yeah.
And so now the other, if you happen to be on top of them, they're flying low.
Yeah, because we sometimes get odd views. Now with a house martin, big bold white rump, and with the sand martin, it's like a pale sandy brown across. So even when it's really dark and you can't see all that sandy colour, you can see that the rump is dark, which is nice and easy.
Sand martin's very dusky, whereas the house martins, if you happen to be in good light, they have that blue sheen, don't they? Very dark blue sheen.
Yeah. And the trouble with these birds moving around, it's always quite tricky to get these sort of like images. And you look in the field guide and it's pristine looking, and when you're outside, it's not quite the same.
Not at all, especially if the light's a bit dodgy. But their shapes are pretty similar, aren't they, the two martins?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, all hirundines have a slightly different mode of flight, but that's quite an advanced thing to look at. You need to study it for a while, and it's not always cut and dry as well, which is the other issue.
Great. So those are the two martins, and they've been around for a while, haven't they? The sand martins are the first to arrive, aren't they? Kind of March.
Yeah, generally sand martins, and then probably swallows, and probably in the rear is going to be the house martins as well. So now we've gone into the swallow. Swallow, very characteristic. Again, look at the head. You've got this dark head with a white belly. So that stands out really well. Comparing it to the house martin, again, gleaming white underneath. So that gleaming white does you for a house martin all the time, really. Yeah. And then we want to have a look at the rear as well, because sometimes on the swallows, they have the long tail streamers in the summer, but by the autumn, they lose them. So again, we only need to really look at the head.
Right. Excellent.
Nice, straightforward.
Yeah, that is quite straightforward. So onwards.
Yeah, so then we're going to have a look from above. Oh no, we're going to throw in sand martin. So again, the sand martin doesn't have a complete capped head to it. It's got that clear chest band, which makes it really nice and easy to see compared to the dark head of the swallow.
It's still pretty obvious on the swallow, isn't it, how dark that head is? If you get up close, of course, it looks black there, but it's red and blue is mixed.
Oh yeah, it's got a lovely deep red throat, but you need to be close, a nice bit of sunlight to see all that detail. And then look at the tails as well. Yeah. So we'll lead straight into throwing in a house martin. Again, we're looking at the rump on the swallow, all dark all above, where the house martin is that gleaming great big white rump, which is really easy to see.
And they'll usually show it to you, won't they? If you watch them for any length of time, they'll do sort of banking, and you'll be able to see that very, very obvious white rump when you look at it.
Yeah, and the head as well. So on the swallow, you've got this dark head, where on the house martin, you've got a contrasting black cap with the white throat on it as well.
Yeah.
Almost told you about 2 warblers there as well, didn't we?
It's black cap and white throat. Very good. Very good for throwing that in.
Yeah.
That's for another week, I think.
Indeed. So again, when we look at the sand martin, in good light, you can see it's nice and pale sandy brown compared to the dark above of the swallow. But then look at the head if it's too dark and you can't quite see the shade colours. And that's easy, very easy way to sort them out. Normally these sort of things, it's just getting the right angle as they whiz by to see what you can see. And the streamers, again, only really applicable in the spring.
And if you're in a place where they are, I mean, I go always, haven't been able to this year because of lockdown, but I go to the Wetland Centre in West London in Barnes, where the sand martins nest. You can hang around there and they'll be flying around for most of the day, won't they?
Indeed, yeah.
You get a chance to have a look at them properly.
Yeah.
Right, swift versus the rest. Now, swift people think are in the same family as the other three, but they're not, are they? They're completely different, unrelated.
Yeah. And really, it's all about the shape of the bird. Just looking at the shape of the swift, this big, long, it's just all wings, really. Very simple shaped with a very small tail. And that just gives the game away straight away. I mean, my photo here, you can see all the subtle colours on it, but often they're just black looking, just charging around above.
It's amazing how sorry, it's going to interrupt you there because I've got to say, amazing how when you watch the swifts, you can see as they change their angle of bank and the sunshine comes on them, that fantastic gleam you've got there on the underside, which is just, it's a thing of great beauty, I say.
Yeah, definitely without a doubt. I really enjoy looking at that. But as on here, you can see that all the other hirundines have got really short wings on them in comparison. They're not that like big, giant boomerang look to them as we get with a swift.
Now, are we going to get, we got dark body. Is that all we've got on the visual identification? And can we move on to the technology of the audio identification?
Let's do the audio. So we're going to hit, should be swifts first of all, screaming. Oh no, hold on.
Fantastic. Sound of summer.
Indeed. And now we should be hitting onto the house martin, which makes it sort of like a sound, a bit farty. I always describe it as.
Do it again.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heard a bit of it.
Yeah. So it's a much louder sound than, say, like with the sand martin. Sand martins make a much higher pitched, gentler call, which we'll hear now. Yeah, and then you've got a very distinctive two-toned call with the swallow as well. Almost like a pied wagtail's call in some ways.
Not quite so separated, but yeah, there was similar kind of tone and timbre. That is excellent. I defy anybody now to be in any doubt at all about those 4 birds from here on in. So watch and learn. That is excellent. Now, we've had a few questions, but there's one that's kind of not a question specifically for us at the moment, but very much to do with this time of year. We're into May and it's well into nestling season, fledging season.
Yeah,
we've got a swift box on our house actually, and we've got great tits nesting in it, which is, the swifts have completely rejected it every single year, but this spring great tits went in there, and I think they might be about to make the move. But quite a few people will ask me, and it's a common thing, of what to do if you find a nestling, a young bird, whether it's a hatchling or a little bit older. What is the best course of action to help it into the world?
Generally, best things to do is to leave it alone, because the parents will be nearby and they'll be feeding it, and the longer you're there next to the young, the less likely the adults are going to come back. Right. Now, if it's in perhaps a bit of a precarious place, then maybe put it up somewhere a bit higher. Mm-hmm. But really, I would always advocate leaving them alone. Let it be. The adults will come in and feed it and nurture it.
And even if the adults aren't actually obviously there, they are very often around the place watching you pretty carefully, because you're a predator as far as they're concerned.
Indeed.
With swift, it's a slightly different thing though, isn't it? Because they'll need specialist care, or they need to be helped in a different kind of way.
Yeah, normally if they've crashed on the ground, there may be something wrong. So I've heard of people being able to lift them up and fry them in the air because their feet are right at the back, so they can't lift off the ground, and they've recovered. Unfortunately, I found a swift like that once, and when I lifted it up, it was too exhausted. Yeah, it crashed down. But by the time I picked it up again, it glided down. It didn't just go. Right. Yeah. So by the time I picked it up and then took it somewhere to try and get it looked after, it had already died, and it was covered in ticks all over it. So
it was in a bad way anyway.
it was in a bad way. Yeah, yeah.
But there is a swift rescue service, I think. So I think that in some places you might be able to contact them. That's all very useful. Leave it alone if possible. It'll probably be all right in its nature, taking its course, and don't worry about it. Right, on to some specific questions now, which I've got to fire up my iPad and get my glasses on because they're quite long. We've got 3 of them. The first one it's from somebody called Go On Mac on Twitter. The question is, I've put up a Swift box. What chance of it being occupied in year 1? Well, in my experience, it's no chance of it being occupied in years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 because they prefer the little crevices in the eaves next door to the posh Barrett home that I've put up. But maybe there's a better answer than that.
Well, yeah, I was told that they do take a while to come to the Swift box, and one of the things that people do is to play recordings of Swifts during the summer months to encourage them in. Now, unfortunately, the other day I was walking along, I could hear Swifts calling. I was thinking, what is this? And it was just constant call frequently, and it was actually someone playing a recording from their house. It completely distracted me. But that's what you're meant to do, and apparently it can take a few years before they actually occupy the nest.
Okay, so probably not much chance, but it's a good thing to do anyway. And the recording thing, even though it will confuse easily confusable ornithologists, playing other bird song is actually generally regarded as not such a good idea, though, isn't it? Sometimes if you're out and you want to play something, it could confuse birds in the breeding season. Is that right?
Yeah. This is distracts birds. So if you play like a recording of a blackbird, your local blackbird may come in and sit beside you and start singing really loudly because it's trying to defend its territory.
Yeah.
Which then takes it away from doing its proper job of potentially feeding its young.
Being a blackbird.
Exactly. So it's really frowned upon, really. You shouldn't really be doing that at all in any shape or form. It's all right to listen to it close to your ear to understand.
Yeah, but out loud so that they can hear it is a good idea. So second question is also about hirundines, about house martins. From Sarah, I'm lucky to have house martin nests and noticed that the birds spend a lot of time flying up to the nests, fluttering about in front of them briefly, so not repairing them or feeding, and I wondered why they do this. Can I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah, house martins are weird. They've got feathers on their feet. It's the only answer I can come up with. David, over to you.
Well, it may be that they're just inspecting the nest, and maybe they select various different nests, but they look at various different sites before they actually select their nest. I don't know if house martins nest in here, so it's a bit hard for me to judge, to be honest, but it may be something to do with that, because like my local magpies build several nests before they actually settle down to one. So maybe house martins do the same. They're sort of like half build a nest or just inspect and then choose the optimum one for them.
And wrens do that as well, don't they? Doesn't the male build several nests and then shows that the female goes around choosing them?
I haven't read that bit. So
I've read that somewhere. I might have just made it up, but I'm pretty sure I've read that somewhere. Very authoritative. And the final question from Rachel. Hello, can I have your wisdom? Are you prepared to give wisdom?
Yeah.
So my daughter and I made a very basic bird feeder from a toilet roll tube covered in peanut butter rolled in birdseed, tied up with string, and hung them in our South London garden last night, and this morning they're gone. We did find the strings and one tube completely clean. Could the birds drag them away and eat them so quickly? We've seen blackbirds, coltits and robins around, or have we more likely been feeding a squirrel or something else?
It's hard to know. It may be like, for example, I've got a fat ball holder just behind me there, and my local carrion crow comes down, tears it off, and then empties out all the fat balls, and then comes back and eats them one at a time, flying away with them. So it may be something very ingenious doing something like that. Maybe the string wasn't strong enough and a big bird came down and ripped it off and then cleaned it up. And if it was left overnight, the chances are something like a fox or something else may have come along and finished off the dog ends, basically.
So it's difficult to know from what's left unless you get CSI Bird Squad in there to examine and look for.
Did they get DNA sample?
Yeah, DNA, epithelials, and finger wing prints. And I'm actually all in favour of that inventiveness and the
great
cleverness of crows, especially. It's like they're set a problem. The food is difficult to get to, and they'll find a way of getting the food.
Indeed.
That is excellent. Thank you so much. Always lovely to talk to you. And we've got a lovely Saturday off. Oh, you're cold. Yes, you may talk.
I had a question sent to me.
Oh, excellent.
And it was by Lee, who sent me a message.
All right.
I wanted to know how to use binoculars. So, the thing is, pair of binoculars is
Yeah,
a
no,
pair of
I'm laughing, but it's true. I actually,
It's true, yeah.
it's difficult. It's
I just use them, I don't think. And then someone explained to me how to, you're meant to look at the bird and then raise your binoculars up whilst you're still looking at the bird. That way you end up in the right spot.
actually looking at the bird. Took me a long time to get.
I don't even remember before I'd done that. That's the trouble. So it's like, I just do it.
It's quite easy. It's quite easy to look down, think unconsciously to look at your binoculars and then go, oh shit, where's the bird gone?
Yeah.
You also good idea to keep the binoculars quite on a short thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I use one of these big harness things. So it does, which I find really comfortable. Takes all the strain off my neck.
Yeah. I see that's professionalism for you. That's why you're a professional ornithologist and I'm merely an amateur bird watcher. That's brilliant. Thanks, David. We will speak to each other next week, I hope, and we'll have more stuff about birds to talk about. And in the meantime, enjoy your week and thanks for watching.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.